Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having a look at the Sony Clie TJ35. This device was donated to me by Justin Wood, so a great many thanks to Justin for making this review possible. This is the first Palm OS 5 device I've ever used. I know it seems daft, but to be honest, when I reached the Palm M500, I kind of felt that Palm had reached the end of its ability to improve on the operating system, particularly as Sony had done a much better job introducing multimedia features on its other designs, such as the N770. That said, I've been using the TJ35 for about the last 4 months, and based on my experience of the newer Palm OS, I actually have bought a Palm T3. The T35 was released in 2003 and takes full advantage of Palm OS 5, while adding Sony's excellent sense of style and of course some upgraded apps that we would expect to find from Sony. As part of the software upgrade, we also get a hardware upgrade. No more 33 MHz Dragon Balls, instead this is rocking a 200 MHz ARM processor combined with 32 MB of RAM. About 27 MB are user accessible. And the operating system runs every bit as fast as you would expect. So let's take a look. So we've got the logo at the top, the display screen, and then the graffiti area at the bottom. We've got the usual silkscreen buttons we'd expect. We've got our home, a menu, calculator, and find, with shortcuts to the number keyboard, letter keyboard, and the brightness. So all very similar to OS 4. Down at the bottom, we've got the calendar, address book, jog dial with a left and right button, tasks, and memo pad. On the bottom, we've got Sony's proprietary connector, a power LED, which can be seen from the front as well. On the right-hand side, we've got a couple of screw lugs, and then we've got the power button. Pulling it down turns it on or off. Pushing it up operates the hold button so that the buttons don't set it off. On the left-hand side, we've just got 2 holes where we would normally be able to attach the front flap. I don't have this. We've got a lanyard clip. Heading round to the back, we've got the reset button, the holes for the speaker. As you can see, the speaker's relatively small. A battery door, some Velcro I put on so I could use it with my Palm case since I didn't have a case with it, but this has worked very well, so it just sticks in there with Velcro, and there's a slot for a stylus. And then finally on the top, we've got the stylus silo. I don't have a stylus, but I can tell you from the size of it, it must be very skinny. It wouldn't even fit the stylus for my pocket looks. We've got the infrared port, standard 3.5mm jack. This is a memory stick slot and an indicator for the memory stick. Let's power it on. So the first thing worth mentioning is that this is one of the best screens I've ever used. It is a Sony, what would you expect? It is a true trans-reflective screen, easy to use in daylight with really good viewing angles. Under normal indoor lighting, and it is bright in here, but even the lowest setting is still visible, and I rarely use it on the highest setting, as for most indoor environments there's enough ambient light to see the screen without ramping it up. Using it to read at night, the power LED is a bit annoying, so I do cover that often with a bit of tape, and it would be nice to have an even lower brightness setting for reading in the dark. The screen has very low latency, so moving objects looks good, and the 320 by 320 resolution means it looks very sharp, as I'm sure you'll agree. I do have 2 minor issues with the screen. The first is it's got a very glossy finish, and so reflections can be annoying. It's been quite difficult to set this up so it doesn't have a lot of reflections, and because it's a trans-reflective screen, colour reproduction isn't very good, so it's not great for showing photos, but for everything else it is excellent, and in my opinion it's one of the best screens from the era certainly, and possibly one of the best ones before OLEDs were created. Feel free to disagree in the comments. To toggle the backlight off, you simply pull the power button down and hold it, and that's the backlight off. As you can see in here, it's still quite easy to read, and that's the backlight back on. So let's talk about the battery. So as I showed you before, underneath my patch of Velcro, you can see the door and where the battery will sit. There's a little screw just there that you undo. So it should be nice and easy to change the battery. Should be. It isn't. The battery is both wider and taller than the battery door. Not only that, but it's stuck down with double-sided tape, so you have to fight to take the battery out. And once you do have the battery out, you'll be pleased to know that the battery connector is actually located right at the top, just next to the infrared port, which means you need a fine pair of tweezers to feed the cable up and push it into place. The good news is, once you do have a new battery in there, the battery life is excellent. With my new battery installed and the backlight on max, I was still getting 4.5 hours of constant use, and with the backlight off, I get about 10 hours. Normally I have it set to some mid-light level, usually just the first setting, so I will average 6 to 7 hours, which I think is pretty good for this kind of device. So Sony has provided us with its custom launcher screen, so this works quite well. We've got time, battery indicator, a shortcut for beaming, a shortcut for application info, and a shortcut for delete. There does seem to be a blank box. I wondered if that was for if you had a Bluetooth or Wi-Fi enabled device. On the left we've got a category panel, which the jog dial scrolls through. Pressing the left or right keys takes the focus to the list or back to the jog panel. So this allows you to select any of the applications by simply scrolling up and down. If you want to launch one, you can simply press the jog dial in. Down at the bottom, we've actually got 12 slots for quick launch, which are easy to set up. These are edited under Edit Favorite Applications. You can also edit launch groups, which allows you to remove unwanted applications. And under Preferences, you can choose whether to include the expansions card, whether you want it animated, drag and drop, not really sure what that does, and use beam icon. You can also choose the display size of icons, so I've got it to small, and I'm going to leave it at small. Of course, if you prefer the standard launcher, you can simply go to Options and choose Standard Launch View. So here's a view we're all familiar with if we've ever had a Palm. So here are all the pre-installed applications. You'll see we've got the standard Palm ones. We've got a welcome screen, preferences, to-do, memo pad, HotSync, Graffiti, datebook, dressbook, and calculator. We're not going to look at those as they're all part of the standard Palm offering, and you can look into those in more detail on one of my previous Palm OS videos. So let's start at the top. For music playback, we've got Aero Player. So the MP3s need to be loaded on the memory card. So I've put a couple of MP3s on, nothing too exciting. So let's just play a quick blast of this. And this is volume max. Because the speaker's small, it's a bit tinny. Because it's on the back, it's very quiet. That's enough, don't want to breach any rules. With headphones though, the sound quality is quite good, and pressing the hold button allows it to continue playing in the background, and you know it's still going because you can see the power light. This saves battery because of course it's not running the screen. We'll pop it back on. So we've got a few options. We've got the usual play buttons, view, volume. We can create playlists, shuffle and repeat. Pressing menu, we can see there's a playlist option, a track info option, so we can see the track details and the bitrate. If we go to options under settings, you can see you can choose background playback, which allows you to run other applications while still playing music in the background. You can have it start playing immediately when you launch it, and you can have it search any cards for plugins when you plug them in. Under file, you can choose how to sort them, cache any info, and it tells it which folder to look into. And last but not least, on playback, we've got single track mode, repeat, volume, and balance, so you can adjust the left-right balance. We've also got DSP mode, which looks like it boosts the bass. You can add various plugins. I haven't currently got any. You can add skins, there's a help file, and there's an About Aero Player. Next up, we've got card info. It just does what it says on the tin, so you can see how much space is free on your memory card. Then we've got Cli&e files. So this is a simple file explorer. It allows you to look on the memory stick or on the handheld by using the menu or by using these two buttons here. We've got usual options, select, copy, move, and delete. Under menu, we can format it, we can ask about media info, and we've got a little about. So it's very useful. I prefer using File Z if I'm transferring a lot of files, or if I'm trying to beam files, it seems much more efficient, but this works fine. So notably, we're missing Palm's memo. As I suggested in my SL10 video, I suspect Sony just didn't want to pay the fee for it. So instead, Sony have given us Cli&e memo. At first glance, this looks very similar. But there are several differences. You can change pen thickness, you can change colour, it's got an undo, redo, delete, and then it's got this button, and this button creates a new page. So this is the same file, but it now has 2 pages. You can add a name at the top. You can also select a category. I'm going to leave it unfiled. And then at this end, we can scroll through the various pages. We can delete a page and we can go back to the main menu. On the main menu, it shows it as thumbnails like this, and it lists all your files here. So it makes it easy to see what you've got. But that's not the only difference. If we go back into here and head to menu, under preferences, we can choose whether to start a new note or go back to the last one. We can put whether the date is the creation date or the modification date. We can change pen colors to 256. And we have this edit mode, standard or detail. So tapping detail changes it and gives us these buttons here. So there is 6 altogether. Tapping on a single square brings up a square like this. When you write on it, let's do a color, and then tapping again reduces it. So this effectively means each page in the Cli memo notebook can contain 6 different pages. And not just that, but you can put a huge amount of detail in it. So I think in many ways this is a massive advantage over the Palm's very basic memo pad. Again, heading back, we can now see a sample of the pages, and you can click on any page to jump straight to it. Next up, we've got Cli Viewer. This is a simple picture viewer. So it'll pull any pictures from your memory card. You can also have it pull from Cli Memo or not, simply by clicking the various options. It's quite fast to select a picture. Once opened, you've got some usual options: zoom in, pan around, and go back. We've got data import. So this is a function that works with your PC in order to use your memory card essentially like a USB stick, which back in 2003 would be very handy. Why would you want to buy a memory stick and a USB when you could just buy one and use it for both? Then we've got this one, Decuma, if that's how you pronounce it. This is another way of inputting text and allows the use of shortcuts just like in Graffiti. So right in ME we'll put Mark Anderson. It's very easy to create your own and you can have up to 10. In this menu we can go to personalize, which allows us to edit part of the alphabet. This is not quite as easy as you might imagine, but does allow better recognition. You can reset it, and when you're done, click done. Under settings you can select whether you've got characters for using accents. Under advanced, we can look at interpretation timeouts. That's how long it'll decide whether or not it's checking anything. And then we've got info. So if we bring up a memo pad, create a new memo, and press the A, up comes our Decuma pad. So we'll pop an E in and see if it does it. Like, what is that? That's nothing like what I put. I'm just going to start that again. But basically, I find this really frustrating. So it recognises letters, that's fair enough, but then you have to press a green arrow to pass it on. To be honest, it's cumbersome, the shortcuts aren't great. If you've learnt Graffiti, this is an absolute waste of time, especially as Graffiti will also allow you to do shortcuts and accents. Talking of Graffiti though, so following a lawsuit by Xerox against Palm for use of its patented Unistroke technology, which is used to create graffiti, Palm decided to reinvent it and produced Graffiti 2, which is the main text input for the device. While some of you, I'm sure, love Graffiti 2 and think it was possibly an upgrade over the original Graffiti, I do not. And that's because putting 2 strokes instead of 1 slows you down significantly when writing. It may also be because I'm a little bit biased and have used Graffiti for a very long time. With that in mind, one of the first things I did when I received this device was install the original Graffiti. This is easy to do, and I've put a link to the PalmDB instructions on it. So next up, we've got memory stick backup, which does exactly what you'd think it might do. So all you need to do is press backup and it'll back up your system. We've got an about on the menu. You can create up to 5 saves and then delete them individually. So this is really handy because having multiple backups means you can always retrieve old data. Then we've got Pixel Viewer. So Pixel Viewer is a way of viewing Office files on the go. Here you are, which I'm sure it says in this introduction. If we go into it, we get this carousel. We've got various options. This one simply rotates the screen. This top one goes back to the current document. This allows you to add bookmarks. Then we've got File, which allows you to access the memory stick. We'll come back to that in a moment. Then we've got History, so it shows you the documents you've previously looked at. This one reloads the current document, taking you back to the beginning. This one is your Options, Homepage. So we've got Help Pages, Blank Screens, blah, blah, blah. Then we've got a General Preferences, Encoding, so you can choose the character encoding that's standard for you. I would leave it on Auto Select. And finally, we've got an About. And the last button allows you to add a bookmark. So if we go to memory stick, I have preloaded a couple of files. So we've got a PDF. So it took a while to load that, but it is a fairly big file. Once we're in, you can use the pen to drag around the screen. Pressing the carousel button, you can see the next few pages. You can also use the scroll bar. Each time you load a page, you have to wait for it to render. Once loaded, if you press and hold the jog dial, it'll zoom in or zoom out. Again, each time you make a size change, you have to wait for it to render. You can also use the left and right keys to move to the next page rather than opening the carousel menu. It is slow at rendering, but that's not a surprise. Most handhelds were very slow at rendering PDFs in this period. Heading back, so it won't open JPEGs, instead it just gives you this blank screen. It will, however, open bitmaps. Given this is only a 640 by 380 image, it takes a very long time to render, particularly when you give that it's only got 2 colours. It'll also open doc format Word documents. It won't open the newer docx. Again, you can zoom using the jog dial and move left and right across the pages. And it'll even open Excel files. These are the older XLS files, not the XLSX files. Again, they can take a little while to render. Overall, I'd say Pixel Viewer was very useful. Obviously, it means you can read these documents on the go. Personally, I would probably download documents to go for this device, as well as a standalone PDF reader. The T35 is a slim, stylish multimedia PDA with a reliable Palm operating system and organisation applications that we'd come to expect from Palm, while featuring some of Sony's excellent tweaks to Palm OS in a continual push to make the Clie range stand out from Palm devices. The only real things I didn't like about this device was the position of the jog dial, moving from an edge where it could be rolled with your thumb easily onto the front, but this was necessitated by the fact they'd put the flap along this edge. I also think the skinny stylus that originally came with it is probably terrible, and I find it a little bit baffling that they bothered to put a battery hatch on the back and then make it nearly impossible to change the battery. Why bother? That said, the screen is excellent, being one of the best that I've seen on any handheld device, making it a pleasure to read from. In fact, I find it more comfortable to read on this screen than I do on the screen of my phone. It's a little bit of a shame Sony didn't expand the viewable area into the Graffiti pad, but it has good battery life, noticeably faster hardware specs, and in my opinion, looks great. If you've enjoyed this video, a like and a subscribe would be excellent. I'd like to create a must-have applications for Palm OS 5. As I say, I'm relatively new to it, so if you have any suggestions for that, please pop a comment below. As always, my name's Hugh. This is Handheld Computing. Thanks for watching.